He had already lifted the pen. The contract was worth billions. Cameras clicked, hands were ready to shake, and the entire boardroom buzzed with excitement. But then, she whispered something. Just 3 quiet words. Don signed that. The billionaire froze mid-motion, his hand trembling slightly above the paper. Everyone turned. The waitress standing beside him, her face calm, her voice steady, had just said something no one else dared to. And in that single moment, everything changed. Hey everyone, welcome back to Kindness in Action, where real stories remind us that compassion can change everything. If you love stories about humanity, heart, and hope, make sure to subscribe, like, and comment below. We share true and inspiring tales that prove kindness is still alive in this world. And now, let's dive into today's story, one that started with a business deal but ended with something far more powerful. Richard Morrow was a billionaire known for his sharp instincts and iron will. He'd built his empire from nothing, or at least, that's what he told people. In truth, his hunger for success had cost him almost everything else: his marriage, his friendships, even his ability to trust. On this cold Monday morning, he was sitting at a long mahogany table in a private dining room with 2 other powerful executives. They were about to close the biggest merger of his career, a deal that would give his company control over thousands of small-town factories across the country. To Richard, it was just business. To those factory workers, it would mean layoffs, relocation, and lost livelihoods. But he didn't think about that. He only thought about the numbers. The waitress serving them that morning was a woman named Maria Alvarez. She was in her late 30s, a single mother of 2, and had been working double shifts just to keep her kids fed. She didn't know who these men were when she was assigned to the room. To her, they were just another group of wealthy businessmen eating breakfast and talking about things that didn't concern her, until she overheard something. While refilling their water glasses, Maria caught a glimpse of the document on the table. She saw the name of her hometown, Greenville, Ohio, printed in bold letters. Her heart dropped. That was where her parents had lived. That was where the factory still employed half the town. She remembered her father's hands, rough and scarred from years of working the machines at that same plant. She remembered how proud he'd been to provide for his family. That factory wasn't just a workplace. It was the heart of the community. Maria froze for a moment, realizing what she was reading. The contract wasn't just a merger. It was a buyout plan. Once signed, the factories, including the one in Greenville, would be shut down within 6 months. She looked up at the man about to sign, Richard Morrow. His expression was cold, focused, detached. She knew she shouldn't interfere. It wasn't her place. She could lose her job, but something inside her wouldn't stay silent. As Richard raised his pen, Maria leaned slightly closer and whispered, just loud enough for him to hear, "Don't sign that." At first, he thought he misheard. His eyes darted up, meeting hers. "What did you say?" he asked, voice low and cautious. "Please," she said softly, her hands trembling. "Don't sign that paper. You don't know what it will do to those families." The room went dead silent. The 2 other executives stared at her like she'd lost her mind. One of them barked, "Miss, you're out of line." But Richard didn't move. For some reason, her words hit him harder than any corporate warning ever had. He looked at her again, really looked at her. There was fear in her eyes, but also something else. "Truth, do you know about this deal?" he asked. "I know what it means," Maria said quietly. "Greenville's my home. That factory kept food on our tables for decades. People there, they depend on it." One of the executives laughed bitterly. "It's just business, sir. She doesn't understand how these things work." But Richard couldn't shake the sudden heaviness in his chest. For the first time in years, he felt something stir inside him: empathy. He thought of his own father, who had once worked long hours in a steel mill before it shut down. He remembered the day his father came home with empty hands and tired eyes. He'd sworn back then he'd never be powerless again. But in chasing power, he'd forgotten the people like his father, the ones who built everything from the ground up. Richard slowly set the pen down. "You said Greenville?" he asked Maria. "Yes, sir." He turned to the executives. "What happens to the Greenville plant after this merger?" The room grew tense. One of them stammered, "It will be consolidated, sir. The production will move overseas." "So everyone there loses their jobs?" Richard asked, his tone icy. There was a pause. It's efficient, the man replied. Richard leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing. Efficient, he repeated quietly. Then he looked at Maria again. Thank you, he said. She blinked, unsure what to say. Then, in front of everyone, he tore the document in half. The executives gasped. One of them shouted, "You can't be serious." But Richard stood. Meeting's over, he said simply. We're not doing this deal. The other men stormed out, muttering under their breath. Maria stood frozen, tears in her eyes, not sure if she was about to be fired or thanked. Richard turned to her and smiled faintly. You did the right thing, he said. And you reminded me what really matters. She tried to apologize for interrupting, but he shook his head. Don't. You saved a lot of people today. A week later, Maria received a letter in the mail. Inside was a handwritten note from Richard Morrow himself. Dear Maria, you showed me what courage looks like. I've decided to reinvest in the Greenville factory, not shut it down. I'm starting a new program to support small-town workers across America, and I'd like you to be part of it. Thank you for reminding me that kindness is more valuable than any deal. Richard. Along with the letter was a check, not for millions, but enough to pay off her debts, fix her car, and start a small cafe she'd always dreamed of opening. But more than the money, what stayed with her was the fact that she had spoken up and it made a difference. Sometimes, kindness isn't soft or easy. Sometimes it's brave. Sometimes it's whispering don't sign that when the whole world tells you to stay quiet. Maria's simple act of compassion didn't just save a town, it saved a man's heart. So, if you ever think your voice doesn't matter, remember this story. One act of kindness